Well, hey everyone, this episode of The Vinyl Guide is brought to you by AudiofileUSA.com. Check out their new website. Now it's even easier to find the cleanest, excellent, and near-mint vinyl records at AudiofileUSA.com. Whether it's jazz, punk, prog, or math rock, you'll find the cleanest vinyl records at AudiofileUSA.com. And we're also brought to you by GrooveWasher.com. Not just record cleaners anymore, but your one-stop shop for protection for your vinyl collection. Get record cleaners, cleaning fluid, archival quality GrooveGuard record sleeves, stylus cleaning brushes, and heaps more. Ask your local record shop to stock the Groove Washer gear or simply go to GrooveWasher.com. And with that, on with the show. Well, hey everyone, welcome to episode 315 of The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for record collectors and lovers of physical media music. My name is Nate. I do this thing. I'm a record collector. I'm a music nerd, and I like to ask my heroes all sorts of questions about the records they've made, the collectibles and the art and the love they pour into making the music we enjoy. And today we've got a real treat, Mr. Eraldo Bernocchi, who you may have heard of from various projects like SIMM, Sigillum S, also Somma, and more. Eraldo is an extremely prolific artist, composer, sound designer, and more. He's created some absolutely captivating and provocative music for many, many years, designed glorious soundscapes, and put out lots of highly collectible records. Now today we'll discuss his many projects, in particular SIMM and the new album Too Late to Dream, out November 26 on Ohm Resistance Records. That music can be enjoyed or even purchased at ohmresistance.bandcamp.com. I really think you're going to enjoy this conversation with Eraldo and I. We cover various topics, including the limited music and vinyl runs of his many bands, the music that inspires him, the story of playing for the Dalai Lama, and so much more, as well as the making of the Too Late to Dream album. Oh, and by the way, this is only part of the interview. There's an extended interview, like double the length, available only to our Patreon supporters at patreon.com/vinylguide. When you help support this show, you get the extras at patreon.com/vinylguide. And this Eraldo Bernocchi interview is extended by another hour, and it's only for supporters of the show at patreon.com/vinylguide. And if you're not a supporter of the show yet, that's okay. You can join right now and be listening to the extended interview within minutes. That's patreon.com/vinylguide, and we thank you in advance for your support. And with that, let's get into our conversation with Mr. Eraldo Bernocchi. This week on the Vinyl Guide, I'm very, very honored. We have as a special guest, Mr. Eraldo Bernocchi, who you may know from, many different projects. Sigillum S, Obaki, Owls, Ashes, Somma. But today we will talk about a lot of those projects, as well as the new music by SIMM. The album Too Late to Dream is being released at the end of November via Ohm Resistance. Mr. Bernocchi, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's our honor.
Well, thanks to you for inviting me.
Too Late to Dream. This is the first SIMM album in quite some time. What was the motivation for revisiting SIMM at this moment?
Well, it's a very good question because I never know. It's something that usually comes out of the blue. It's like I'm working on something and suddenly say, this could be a SIMM track. And I put it in a folder. Over time, I find a folder of 25, 35 tracks, ideas, skeletons that are there. And then after a while, maybe eventually I start to think about doing a new SIMM album. But as I don't want to be stuck in the loop of being always with myself, because SIMM is a solo project. So I mainly do collaborations. I mainly work with other people. I get easily bored when I work by myself. I find it very often I find it as a limit. because I have no exchange with other people. I'm relating to myself in a mirror and constantly to myself, yeah, you're really good. It's really good what you're doing, which is not.
But SIMM, in many ways, with your other projects, is very, I'll call it secular. Like, you come back around to it after a period of time. And it's not just SIMM, it's your other projects as well. It feels like the way I've interpreted it is you're constantly in a state of creation. You store some ideas, and then once you amass a quantity, then you start working on that project. And it's just, a rotation.
Yeah, pretty much. Also, there's the need. Sometimes there's the need to do certain things. Mm-hmm. For instance, I started with punk, metal, and noise music. Mm-hmm. So, and through Sigillum S, we used the noise so many times, but it's something that then disappeared, and sometimes it pops out, and I say, yeah, okay. Now I really need to do some noise. It's kind of a physical necessity, and SIMM is the kind that's same thing. But this time I wanted to involve voices.
Yeah, talk to us about that, because this is the first SIMM recording where you've incorporated vocals.
Yeah, because as I was saying before, it's kind of boring after a while, to be by yourself. I like to interact with people. I like to discover interesting things. Floden wasn't the real discovery, because I know his work since years. I love his low voices, and I really like his lyrics. I think he has a way of telling things, like in one sentence, as like a sentence like, sometimes you gotta look for disaster. It's
profound.
Yeah, it's so powerful, right? And the guys from South Africa, Feli Munkazi, I found them because I'm a big fan of Nyege Nyege Records. It's a label from Africa, managed by Arlende Zan, and this guy is making a miracle, because he is putting out there fantastic African artists. So you have people doing industrial music with found objects in the slums of South Africa. You have Duma, the black metal noise duo, that are now playing all over the world in various festivals. And you have like Feli Munkazi, that they are singing in Zulu language. Yes. And what they do is basically this genre called Qcom, that is from Durban in South Africa. It's putting together house and hip hop and noise and other things. Mm-hmm. It's a really tribal thing. They usually use it for celebrations. Mm-hmm. So I felt in love with the flow they had. Mm-hmm. So I contacted the label.
Did you have the record kind of conceptualized when you started to involve them, or were they the collaborating from the early days of you getting those files and starting to work through them?
Not with Feli Munkazi, with whom the communication is a little bit more tricky, because they speak English, they write in English, but on a kind of a basic level. Mm-hmm. So it's not easy to express concepts with them. So I tried my best, and it's not easy for them to explain me things they're saying in the lyrics. So I have to rely on Arlene from the label for certain things. But with Floden, when I contacted Floden, I conceptualized. I had a concept. I had this title. Sometimes I go by titles. Mm-hmm. I had the album titles before doing the album. Okay. Before even laying down something, I said, "Well, the next SIMM is gonna be called Too Late to Dream," and I didn't even know if a new SIMM was going to be there. But that was my idea. So when I called up Flodan, I told him this thing, and he said, "Well, I really like the concept. I like the title. Let's work on it." So that's the thing. I grew up with the Pink Floyd and the Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin, and then punk came, and that for me was the revolution. Yeah, I can do this. I remember when the Pistols came out. It was like, what?
Was that the album? Was that the music that made you buy a guitar?
No, the music that made me buy a guitar, well, now I think you will love, but everybody has got his own band, right? So I bought a guitar because a friend, when I was 13, a friend came to me, actually was an American guy. He came to me with an album, and he said, "Well, you have to listen to this album because this album is amazing." And that was Alive from Kiss.
Oh,
the double live. And I said, "Whoa, what's this thing?" So I listened to the album, and I felt in love. I mean, my let's say my three very first rock love were Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, and Kiss. And I wanted to buy a guitar. So I bought a horrible guitar, which later I discovered it was not horrible, it was a collector item, but I sold it. A Hohner guitar, and self-made distortion pedal. And I wanted to play like Ace Frehley. That was that was my my thing. So that was the record that changed. Really, right. I said, "Oh God, I want to play." Before that, I was listening to music, but I never thought about playing. I was just listening to it, man. The first two records I bought were "Wish You Were Here" from Pink Floyd and "Don't Shut on Me, I'm Only the Piano Player" from Elton John.
See, with Pink Floyd and Elton John, those artists are quite accomplished. The music is quite complex. Kiss seems to be very, I mean this in the best way, simple, direct, but I would imagine your feeling towards that was, this is accessible. This is something I can do.
Exactly. This is something I can do, something I want to do. But then, 2 years later, punk came out. And it was even more accessible. It was like, okay, well, this is something I can really do. So I was playing with friends, in the typical attic, and then in the basement doing covers from Sex Pistols, The Damned, Clash.
Which city did you grow up in?
In Milan.
In Milan. Now, was it easy in Milan to be able to get a hold of records from the UK punk records?
Well, Italy, of course, it wasn't easy like UK or the States. But Italy Milan had good record shops. Kind of expensive because everything was import, but we could find pretty much everything.
So you start with Sigillum S, and you're releasing the music on cassettes largely in the early days. And I assume that's because it's easy, it's cheap, you could make 100, 200 and get them out. Talk to me about what was the first project you had that was on a vinyl record?
It was a Sigillum S record. Yeah. It was Boudoir Philosophy for ADN, an experimental label from Milan. They did a lot of things, very interesting stuff. And we did that record, and it's crazy how things change, because I remember they said, okay, we want to do this record. We are going to do the first 500 copies on white vinyl, and the other 1,500 on black vinyl. And for us, it was absolutely normal, because if you think, it's the first 500 limited is on white and 1500 on black. Mm-hmm. Okay, now to sell 2,000 copies of a record like that, back in the day, it was crazy. But people were buying records. So when we did the first CD, Dispersion and Slice Carrions for Minus Aibin's record, they repressed it 3 times, and we went over 10,000 copies. And it was crazy, because if you think, it was really, extreme post-industrial stuff, that people were buying records. So one of the most successful records on Rare Noise is the album I did with Harold Budd and Robin Guthrie.
Okay.
It's been repressed only once, I think. Mm-hmm. And we sold maybe 4,000 or 3,500 copies. That today, it's a lot of records for today's. But people like you and me buy records. Most of the people, they don't buy records anymore. So if you think about, going back to your question, the first vinyl of Sigillum S, we did 2,000 copies. Crazy.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, okay, there are 2,000 freaks on this planet buying music for disturbed people. It's great.
Well, what I found very interesting about a lot of the projects you've been involved in is that early on, there were limitations of the numbers, like 100 copies here, 200 copies here, sometimes abstract numbers, 108, 39 or whatever. And they almost instantly became somewhat collector's items. Was that kind of part of...
They became that.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that was on purpose to do like 108, for instance. We did 108 tapes for Bardo Scroll because it's linked to the 108 pearls of the Tibetan rosary, the prayer beads.
Right.
That's the reason. It's not, so we decided to go for that. And when they printed in CD, we said, well, you have to do 1008. The sum must be 9. So it was linked to, but on the other side, there was, of course, after a while, someone realized that it was really interesting to do, super limited things. Mm-hmm. Because they were becoming collector items, and some people that were buying like multiple copies and now selling things with impossible prices on eBay. Yeah. Like coil stuff with prices that are just insane. Completely insane.
Well, what's your reaction when you see one of these records that you made going for €1,000, whatever? What is your reaction?
I don't know, really. I never had the collector thing. I never had the collector monkey on my back. Paolo Bandera from Sigillum S is more a collector. Paolo is more he's a completist. Yeah. So he needs to have, different things and things. I for a certain span of time, I bought everything. So like the Japanese version of this and the German version of that. And then I started to say, okay, what's the main point here? The main point here is the music and the concept behind this music. So unless there was a very different cover, I still have those records, of course, but I stopped buying, everything. So when I see these records going so high, I say, okay, there's a market for collectors. They're more and more rare. But on the other side, it's, I don't know, a little bit sad. Mm-hmm. A little bit spoiling and travang on people passion. It's too much. I've seen a coil record going for like $10,000. Because there's a postcard with John Balance signatures on that and things like that. I mean, coil is an example, but if you check the auctions, like you got Beatles records or Led Zeppelin records costing fortunes. I'm sure among my records, I'm sure there's some pretty crazy price things.
Oh, there are, absolutely. And I always see it as people that now have money, when they were young, that was important to them. They've spent their lives working and maybe buying a house or two, and now they've got money that they can spend on their happiness, and they're trying to buy a memory.
Yeah.
That's a piece, that's a connection to their youth, and that's of value, significant value to them.
It's a nice point of view. I wish you didn't said that, actually, because I have this thing, as I told you at the beginning of our conversation, this thing with time. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's a link to, for sure, for a lot of people, it's a link to their youth. Each one of us keeps links. I keep my not the very first, but the second distortion pedal I bought. Actually, my father gave it to me as a Christmas present. An Electro-Harmonix Big Muff, the first row they did, and it was 77, and it's still there. It's still working with a little bit of fiddling with things inside. It still works, and it's all rusted. I mean, the enclosure. But I'm keeping that thing as a treasure.
Sure.
Because it's a link to those days.
Yeah.
It's 45 years ago. It's 44 years ago, and it's still there, still working.
Yeah. It's part of your origin story.
Yeah, well, the day it will stop working, I will probably keep the enclosure to do something. Mm-hmm. Just put it on a wall, or
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
My daughter.
So going into some of the records that you've done, I believe there were, and correct me if I'm wrong, there was an album, Mutilated Terrorism.
Yeah.
Where you had a limited number of records and then a limited number of broken records that you sold.
We'll be back after these messages.
Hey there, I gotta tell you about the Groove Washer. Not because I have to, but because I want to. The Groove Washer is the best record cleaner you can get. And if you have a vinyl collection, you need to keep it clean. Dirt and dust lead to groove wear, which affects the sound and value of your record collection. Use the Groove Washer to clean before each play, and your ears and future pocketbook will thank you. Ask for the Groove Washer by name at your local record store, or go direct to groovewasher.com and use promo code VinylGuide10 at checkout. Groove Washer is a great holiday gift. Why not send one to a friend? groovewasher.com, discount code VinylGuide10. Do it now. And all record nerds want to hear about AudiophileuSA.com, the family-owned and operated online record shop that's been in business over 30 trustworthy years. AudiophileuSA.com only sells excellent and near-mint vinyl records, only in tip-top quality for your turntable. And with over 42,000 titles, you're sure to find a bunch on your want list at AudiophileuSA.com. audiophile vinyl is not just for the elite. Everyone can enjoy the gold standard of sound at audiophileusa.com. Search by title, genre, label, dig and find the deals at audiophileusa.com, home of the Holy Grails.
Now we return to the program already in progress.
No limits. Going into some of the records that you've done, I believe there were, and correct me if I'm wrong, there was an album, Mutilated Terrorism.
Yeah.
Where you had a limited number of records and then a limited number of broken records that you sold. The destroyed ones. Is that...
Oh, we did also, yeah, but that was... Yeah, and there was also another edition, because basically when we did that 12-inch again for we did it for Mina Summons, if I remember well. So they did the pressing and they printed more vinyl than covers. Right. So they gave us like a box with white covers and the vinyl was inside. So what we did is that we involved friends to take photos after listening to the record. They took photos and then we stick the photo on the cover and we painted. So each one was completely different. Mm-hmm. Some of them were really nice to see. Some of them they were horrible, actually, the result, because you never know what's coming out. But we were liking the idea, so we did only 23 copies or 31 copies, and the rest we broke them. We destroyed them, and we said, well, if you want to buy for what it's worth a broken record for having the object, you can do that, or we can give them, for free as a gift to people, because it's the value of the content is always opinable. Mm-hmm. So even if it's broken, it may have value, or if it's completely perfectly playing, it may have no value at all. So that was the idea. We actually enjoyed doing that thing. It was nothing. Incredible. It was nothing.
But it's interesting. That's like an art project or a social experiment, really.
Yeah.
In fact, those broken versions are the ones that go for big money. There's only, I think, about 10 of them, maybe. The vinyl destroyed copies, yeah.
I remember I enjoyed breaking them. I remember that. Or I remember there was some version in the white cover, in the painted cover. They had there were some versions that were unplayable. Like for instance, I didn't like the result. I said, oh, okay, this one needs to be unplayable. So I was getting like sandpapering the record.
Yeah.
In certain points. And then you try it on the turntable and it's working perfectly, and suddenly it's looping in a completely crazy thing. It was interesting, it was an exploration of also of a concept. Where is the value of the content? Where it starts and where it ends, and where is the value of the object? Is it the object or is it the content? So it's still kind of rings in my mind, this thing. I think Paolo has one or two of them, and I haven't got not a single one, I think.
Well, you could make one. You can get a regular one and break it.
Yeah, I can get. Yeah, exactly. I can do one, and that would be really bad. Actually, I'm sure there's someone out there imagining things, and there's been a moment during time where we've been even bootlegged. There were bootlegs of Sigillum S tapes.
Yeah. What was your reaction to being bootlegged?
It was funny because if you think about it, think about a project like that. Okay, for most people, is unlistenable. Was unlistenable. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, during time, we became more listenable, maybe more accessible, or I don't even know that. Maybe we explored other concepts and we became a little bit more accessible. But those days, we really weren't so accessible. So there were people doing bootlegs of our tapes. And I thought, oh, this is crazy. But then I simply realized that people were buying things and there weren't enough things. So they were copying things. There's a couple of persons we know they bootleg us. We know them. They are a big fan. We are actually friends with them. Well, especially with one. The other one is a very nice guy, but during the years, he started to move toward some natural activism bordering far right. So we lost any kind of contact because we don't want to have any kind of contact with these kind of people, actually, which I find are really dangerous. But back in those days, in mid-80s or late 80s, they did bootlegs, especially of tapes, because what we were doing tapes at home. Mm-hmm. I mean, the first tape that has been published through a label was transflexured on Broken Flag, Ramley, Garrimundi label. Mm-hmm. And for us was like, okay, they asked us a tape for a label. It was a big thing. Sure. Because everything was done in my room. Everything was done. I was in high school, finishing high school. So what I was doing, I was having 2 tape recorders and connecting things. And I needed to be very careful because one tape recorder, I hacked it. I opened it and I found the motor. Yes. And there was a capacitor and a resistor linked to the motor. And I said, okay, this thing is controlling the speed. I'm going to fuck it. That's the idea was, so I can control the speed. I can destroy the speed of things, of tapes. So I was speeding up and slowing things to impossible, to super slow things. And so every time I was duplicating tapes, I was forced to be 100% sure that the speed was the right one. I'm sure someone has got tapes with the wrong speed somewhere.
Tell me a bit about playing for the Dalai Lama. I believe it was Somma, was it?
Somma, yeah. Somma is a project. It's the first thing I did with Laswell, actually. Mm-hmm. It's a project I conceived with Petulia Mattioli. And I've always been into the Tibetan shamanic culture thing. Sigillum S, Bardotos Grol, and a lot of other things. So, and we thought of involving Tibetan monks into more Western context, but from a different point of view. Most of the people use world musicians. They are usually involved in westernizing what they do. I mean, being guests of what of records, which is an approach that I never liked too much. To be honest, it's a little bit like a exhibition your latest contemporary art painting you just bought at an auction, and you invite friends for a glass of wine, and look what I have on the wall. Oh my God, you have a Kiefer, that's amazing. Well, look at what I have on my record. Oh my God, you have someone from Papua New Guinea. It's fantastic. You know what I mean? Okay, I know it's extreme what I say. It's not always like that, but most of the time the impression that I had is that. This impression, I never had it with Bill, with Laszlo. I think Laszlo has been one of the few, or maybe the only one, to be able to translate and create new languages, putting together a vision of sound and culture that is really global. And the output was and is so personal and so powerful that we are thinking about a real cultural icon, a pillar, not only of music, but of culture on the whole, the message. So what Bill managed to do is to be applied to sound what Baroque's applied to words under a certain perspective. And that explains also the reason why they worked together various times. And so going back to Somma, we thought about involving Bill in this episode because I really want to do something with the Tibetan monks. So we did a first album with them. And this album had some amazing reviews. The Wire, there were raving reviews everywhere. And so first time, a big agency from Turin called us and they said, well, do you want to do this live? And we said, yeah. So we started to think how to do it. And it was only Bill, me, 7 Tibetan monks, and Petrulia Mattioli on live visuals. The light design, the scenography, the live visuals, and live visual were slides, no videos. That was 96. Having a video projector for an opera theater was something that was so costing that, we rehearsed with the Tibetan monks, and through a translator, I made them understand, you're not going to be a guest. You are going to play with us. I understand that for you, music is an offering. It's a holy offering. It's not an entertaining thing. So it's a very different thing. But the idea is that we will follow you. It's not the other way around. And it came out really as magic. I had the recording. I never put it out. And then in 2001, His Holiness, the Dalai Lama came to visit Italy. And in Trento, in a city up to the north, the council called us, the city mayor called us, and they said, well, look, we would really love to have you playing for the Dalai Lama. Because I think the message you have is very strong. He likes the idea. He's very curious to see, what you do. But this time we involved other musicians too. So we had Gigi on vocals, we had Rais on vocals, we had Hamid Drake on drums, Toshinori Kondo on trumpets, me on guitar. This time we had visuals, and we played for him in a 3,000 seats theater. And then he gave us half an hour alone with him. That has been one of the strongest experience I ever had. Not because I'm, let's say, involved with the Tibetan cause since ages, but because it's so strong, the way he look at you, the eyes. I never seen something like that. is so sweet, is super sweet, but is really, really strong. You really appreciate what we did. You really appreciate what we did. And then we did another one 6 years later in Milan, in another beautiful theater. This time I involved Niels Peter Mulder on trumpet. Always, Hamid, Bill, and me, like bass, guitar, and drums, that were all the same. And another bunch of singers and other Tibetan monks. Every time they were different. Mm-hmm. And also this time was good, but the amazing one was the one playing for the Dalai Lama has been definitely a highlight. But if you listen to the record, to the live recording, I can send it to you. You think, okay, this stuff is pre-recorded, is arranged, it's, they rehearse it. But we never did anything like that. We just decided the key, the kind of beat or groove, and we decided with the monks, okay, what are you going to play in this? So we actually involved them in the creative process, and they enjoyed it a lot because they are not used to play music as music.
Right.
It's an offering. It's a religious thing. So on certain things they're playing oboes, on certain tracks they're playing Dungcheng, the long horn. Otherwise they have like solo voices. It was amazing. It's a difficult project to bring on stage, Somma, because it's expensive. It's really expensive because you have to involve a lot of musicians. There's some technical requirements, and on the other side, let's say that it's not very successful with the Chinese government.
Yeah.
So we had various contacts from big festivals to do it, and then everything fell apart. And then when I was like 2 years later meeting, like the festival curator said, well, I shouldn't tell it, but we had some sponsorship problem with, for this, because it's a message. It's a clear message. I don't think I'll ever have a visa for China, for instance, if I want to go there.
Right.
I did too many.
You wouldn't get your visa approved.
I don't think they will give my visa, nor to me or to Petulia Mattioli. The Chinese don't like us.
Yeah.
The Chinese don't. For sure. The government, not the people. The people. I think the people really don't care, but the government, for sure.
Yeah, you're familiar with Gang of Four, the late Andy Gill?
Yeah.
He was on the show just before he passed, unfortunately. But he was about to take a tour of China.
Yeah.
It's the first time he toured there. And we talked about everything you've said, even the name of the band, Gang of Four. How is it that you could now play in China? And he said, well, they've got the visas approved. They've got everything, Now, he was very much looking forward to it. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but he's noted as one of the first individuals in the UK to die of COVID.
Yeah.
Which they caught on that trip at the end of 2019.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a conspiracy theorist too. Actually, I hate those kind of people. But on the other side, Chinese are really powerful.
No, yeah.
It takes ages every time to bring Somma on stage mainly because of this reason.
In fact, just probably having this conversation, I probably won't get my visa approved.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we can be at the airport together, eating something and waiting for our visas. But on the other side, I suspect that if you pay, they approve everything.
Oh, well, yeah. Was he? My father used to say, you can't keep $1 million in jail.
No, absolutely, because out of curiosity, I checked on their website to the visas because I would love to go to China. Actually, there are people that wrote me, "When are you coming to play to China?" Doing electronics live set on here. I would love to go there, and I love Asia. So I mean, it's really natural. Mm-hmm. And they have like 2 different rows for visas. Like you can have the super urgent, you pay a shed load of money and they give you the visa like in 24 hours. So I'm sure that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm joking. I'm sure they will eventually.
So with COVID now lifting, the world getting a little bit better, able to move around a bit more, are you thinking about doing some more shows, traveling abroad?
Well, I hope it's quite 2 years I'm not playing live. It's a nightmare. Mm. I really like to play live. It's something I really like. But the last two things I did were in 2019. I did one in a museum in Italy, together with Gareth Davies on bass clarinet, and so it was only guitar and clarinet. And I did another one solo in Slovenia or Croatia, I don't remember, at an industrial festival, noise festival. I did a solo electronic thing, and that was the last things I did. I did a Sigillum S thing actually online.
Oh, okay. All right. A live stream.
Yeah, live stream. They made us an interview and we played half an hour live. It was kind of fun. It was, but I was here. Paolo was in Milan. Mm-hmm. It was a little bit of Bruno was in Ravenna. It was a little bit of a weird sensation, but nonetheless, kind of pleasurable.
So look, Eraldo, I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
Oh yeah, me too.
I want to be respectful of your time. I do want to recommend people take a look at if they're unfamiliar with the work of Eraldo Bernocchi, please go and Apple Music now has Sigillum S. What else is on Apple Music right now? Is SIMM on Apple Music?
Yes, SIMM is on Apple Music. Well, Apple Music, Amazon, Spotify, pretty much all the digital platform they have.
Obaki is on there.
Obaki, Metallic Taste of Blood, what's that? Sigillum S, Somma. That's pretty much.
And I'll put some links in this episode page of direct to the Bandcamp. There's also an album that we didn't talk about at all that I really like, Also.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Especially if people like very heavy guitars, check out AusoBand.bandcamp.com. The album Also is quite great. But the new album, Too Late to Dream, on Ohm Resistance, again, I'll put some links in the episode page. It is tremendous. And not only the song construction and the composition, but sonically, I can't wait to hear it on vinyl. And I believe people can check that out at EraldoBernocchi.bandcamp.com and at Ohm Resistance. I think it's ohmresistance.bandcamp.com.
Yeah,
again, I'll put those links in this episode page. Eraldo, please, let's come back on the show anytime. We'll continue the conversation.
Whenever you're
always welcome here. And again, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Lovely. Thank you. Thanks a lot to you.
All right, there we go, Mr. Eraldo Bernocchi here on the Vinyl Guide. I really enjoyed that interview. And guess what? There's like a whole nother hour available at patreon.com/Vinyl Guide just for that community. Go up there. If you don't already support us, you could join now, get access to the extended interviews, get early access to episodes ongoing, and of course you get the nice warm fuzzy feeling of helping support this show. That's patreon.com/Vinyl Guide. that's it for this episode of The Vinyl Guide. Thank you so much for joining us here. Please share these episodes on your social media, share them out on Facebook, tweet them out on Twitter, even post the images on Instagram. You could even do a dance on TikTok. Help us get the word out of the Vinyl Guide podcast. And thanks as always for your support. We'll be back shortly with a brand new episode. So until we talk next time, get out there and buy some records, people. Cheers.
That's it for this episode of The Vinyl Guide. Send your thoughts to Nate at thevinylguide.com or follow or tag us on Instagram at Vinyl Guide. Until next time, keep spinning.